A gente começou agora, gente, falando desse olhar todo em relação a design, mas a gente vai agora receber uma pessoa que eu admiro muito, eu vou mudar para inglês aqui. Actually, I was just explaining them about our intentional choices in design. And we talk a lot about the human perspective and the way we should choose design-wise and in terms of experience. And now, introducing you to the group, Egle is one of the people that I know in the world with Donald Taylor. They know exactly what's going on and what should be going on in AI, in L&D, in learning and development. And the thing is that we don't know exactly where it's going to be. So it's when you think inside a company, it's hard to choose what we're going to do. So actually, my first question, and the way is going to do this, and if you let me, I'm going to change to Portuguese. Gente, o que a gente vai fazer é uma coisa que chama AMA. Ask me anything. Ela não vai fazer uma palestra. Ela vai depender das perguntas de vocês. Então, quem está online, coloca as perguntas no chat. Quem está presencial, levanta a mão e a gente vai atrás. Essa é a pessoa que mais sabe de IA e aprendizagem no mundo. So, actually, my first question is, what's going on? What's happening? So, it's a system change, technological change, work change. So, thank you a lot for being here in this amazing place here in São Paulo. And this is my first question.
Well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining. And it is, I bet, quite a switch of gears in comparison to the last session. So yeah, let's get our heads into AI. In terms of what's going on here, let me download my brain for a bit in terms of where my head is at these days. Because for the past 3 years, since generative AI came out in late 2022, we have been focusing on how AI can be used in L&D. We viewed AI as something that changes the tools that we use and helps us do our own work. And it's obviously it's enabled us to do things that in many cases weren't possible before in terms of speed and scale. And just think about your AI-powered learning, design, feedback analysis, avatars, role plays, all of these things. But they're just one part of AI and L&D, which has been the focus for the past 3 years. And I think this is where we are at as an industry right now, to answer your question directly, that there is obviously the AI use and experimentation is snowballing. Last year, we reached this inflection point where more people reported in our research that they were using AI in L&D instead of just experimenting with it. And especially in the past half a year and especially 3 months, there's been this acceleration on the ground, although arguably there is a big gap between kind of the first movers who you hear about a lot on LinkedIn and where the industry is at. But I still think that where the industry is at is very much focused on using AI as a tool that helps L&D to do its own tasks, do its own thing. And something that we have talked much less about and pondered as a strategic question, much less, is the fact that L&D does not exist in a vacuum, and that AI changes the work that L&D is meant to support. This means that there is a much bigger question. What does L&D need to become to keep adding value in a workplace that has AI in it? A workplace where content is abundant, not scarce, where people are not waiting for help, they just go and do it themselves. They find this information, they learn a skill, they figure things out. And some L&D organizations have already quite literally faced this existential question. Their key value proposition, which was content production, which was training provision, became obsolete because people in the business were just doing it themselves. If we need content, we'll find it. If I need to upskill my team, I'm just going to ask AI for some kind of scaffold, some expertise, and I'm going to use my subject matter knowledge, and I'm going to just spin up a whole onboarding program just by myself. I don't need L&D for it. So if L&D looks just within its own domain and only responds to change in the tools that they use, AI may improve production but still solve the wrong problem. You end up with efficiency without relevance. And I think this is where we are at. The tools are good enough to do a lot of things that are valuable for us, but the question is whether we are just sort of kind of accelerating in a certain direction, and that direction may not be where we actually want to end up.
Very good. And it's interesting because your last report was in September, I guess. So you just keep in touch with everyone, and you realize that on the last month, things have changed, are speeding up a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes. So definitely, especially here, we're talking about agentic AI, and probably in particular, I think the inflection point was the Claude Cowork release, when suddenly it became accessible to a lot of people to start building their own agents and just look at their workflows as a whole instead of just using AI as an assistant that you just chat with and ask questions, right? But I do feel that there is a bit of a to give everyone a reality check. I think there is a big difference between the frontier conversations and the influencers talking about all of these cool things that you can do and what's actually happening on the ground. Because personally, I get a whiplash between the conversations that are being had in these kind of spaces about where the industry is going, what does it mean for us, and so on. Even this conversation that we're having right now, and then you go to a space with just average L&D leaders or just L&D professionals, and they're still asking the questions of where do I begin? We just got like after 2 years of sharing, like 20 of us sharing 5 licenses, we just got 20 licenses. So what do we do with them? Like, what does that mean for us? So we are still, I feel like there is a big gap between the frontier and what is, between AI capability and what we are doing with that capability, especially if you take away some of these kind of top companies for L&D that have started AI integration, organization-wide AI integration early.
And I think this gap is because of L&D's team capabilities on how to use or how to imagine a new world.
I mean, there are layers and layers. So the first layer, before we even get to capability, because capability is something that I think it is a factor, but I think if we look at kind of the stack of where we begin with technical infrastructure. Do you have licenses? Is the AI that you have integrated into your workflow tools? Does it have access to any data, or do you literally have an assistant, a chatbot that you speak with? Because as I said before, a lot of teams did not they would have access to AI, but it would be intermittent. Not everybody would have it, right? So how can you create a workflow if you're sharing half the amount of licenses as you have people, right? So that's the first layer. Then you have the mindset layer, which I think, again, comes before capability, because with the mindset layer, it is about the habit of mind. It is about, instead of taking things the way that you have always done them, is the habit of mind of taking a step back and thinking, how can AI help me do that? And especially as AI improves every few weeks, that there is this kind of big release of some kind of development, you need to keep rethinking that. Okay, so keeping in mind what happened last week, at any given week, on any given week, keeping in mind what happened last week, what does that mean for our workflows, right? So this constant way of working with AI, the way you think about it, the way you solve problems, the way you position it in the workflow, that is a big issue.
Right.
And then it's only the third layer that is about how well can you use AI? And I think L&D people, say what you want about them, but they like tinkering and they like learning. So I think capability is the lesser of the three
Great.
problems.
Couple of questions here, actually a lot of them. You should write a book only with these questions, they're so good. But I'm going to choose on the time that we have here. There's a lot of questions regarding personalization. Vanessa Favaretto asked, for instance, personalization and engagement are key issues in L&D today. So what are you seeing and how AI could help on this part of the learning experience?
Yeah, these are personalization and engagement. They are related, but they're not the same question per se. Because yes, when we talk about personalization, and we know that one of the main things that creates engagement is relevance, right? If you can give someone the information as soon as they need that information, it's much more likely that they're going to be engaged. And AI enables to do that. Well, these days in some companies, you just plug in AI into your, essentially what used to be LMS. And then when people ask questions, they get contextualized answers from both your learning libraries as well as any kind of organizational knowledge corpus and so on. So that's an extreme example at the frontier of how that happens. And again, this is personalization in itself is at which level? Is it at the level of the question? Is it at the level of medium term upskilling? So personalization at the level of, I just got my performance review. How do I get a promotion 6 months from now? So is it that kind of personalization? Is it personalization that helps me navigate what the organization has to offer? Because especially with bigger companies, that is a real problem. They have so much, they have so many programs, people just cannot find them, and their managers cannot career coach them because they don't have visibility of everything that is available. So AI is solving that problem as well. So exploiting what is already available in the organization, right? But when it comes to engagement, one point that actually Don and I, we have been working on this latest piece of our research on the transformation triangle, which is about how L&D needs to transform. And one thing that that has come out in terms of engagement is that it is not so much how you make the content palatable. Like engagement isn't about taking a page of text and using an AI avatar to read that page of text in a 3-minute video, right? Like this is not what we're talking about when we're talking about engagement. Relevance is, and AI being able to give people contextual answers at the point of need in the workflow, something that's been the holy grail of L&D for a long time, this is where AI has real value. But also, if we look even at an even higher level, engagement comes from people feeling the consequences of their development, ultimately. This is something that actually Sandra Laughlin from EPAM, so do follow her. She's an amazing woman and thinker in the space. She has been talking about that, and my thinking is in this regard is inspired by her, which is that engagement happens when it is rational for people to put in the effort to learn, and when it is consequential, which means that if I learn, it makes a difference. I'm going to get a promotion. Someone is going to notice it. Me putting in that extra effort is going to be meaningful. And on the opposite side, if I don't do it, there are going to be consequences for my promotion, for my movement within the company, and sometimes even in some contexts, in more high performance contexts, that I'm going to lose my job, right? That is the ultimate enabler for engagement. And I feel like AI in some ways, or in important ways, can do that. It can do that for giving skills visibility. It can do that by what we call enablement partner, helping create an ecosystem where people share with each other and kind of build this whole ecosystem of knowledge sharing, which is driven by humans, but made scalable by AI. And ultimately, that is what drives engagement.
It's interesting because I love the triangle, and you talk on the triangle a lot about enablement, like letting the other areas, the other departments create content also. And we know that learning isn't about the volume of content. This is the question from Carla. In your view, what are the signs that AI is truly enhancing human performance at work? Only easy questions.
I mean, it's one of these questions where, first of all, short-term performance or long-term performance, that's one distinction. And another one is, it's a question that an individual can answer very obviously, and yet it is very difficult to conceptualize if AI is making a difference. And also, again, what kind of difference? Difference in speed is much easier to calculate. Difference in quality, possible to calculate depending on your role. What about relationships? What about that, for example, the fact that you're doing everything with AI instead of working with someone else and learning from them? What does that mean for your relationships with the people around you if suddenly working with AI makes your work more siloed? What does it mean for your long-term skill development if suddenly apprenticeship as a thing goes away? By apprenticeship, I don't mean the literal apprenticeship scheme, but the whole learning from other people who might be more senior than you, or your peers who are more experienced in certain matters. So again, the distinction, and something that I think everyone else is trying to figure out, we just about have metrics to see how much time you have saved and how your outputs have improved if you have tangible outputs like work artifacts, soft skills visible in your call transcripts, things like that. But all of these longer term effects, and there are things that I don't think that we have fully mapped out and foreseen, the sort of second, third order effects, and sort of what kind of trade-offs we are actually making when we're using AI.
As a last question, the festival is called From Control to Culture because we believe that part of what Agile do is doing on learning is try to control every aspect of it inside the organization. And we think that learning culture, it's very important, specifically in this new world. I'd like just to, your final thoughts commenting on the importance of learning culture in the process.
Every organization, every company, every team already has a learning culture.
Perfect.
And L&D works within the structural enablers and the systemic factors that create the learning culture. L&D can tickle it somewhere. So for example, if you feel like there is expertise bubbling up, L&D can create spaces for that expertise to be shared digitally or in person. But we also have to be realistic about the limits of what we can do, and the fact that learning culture is formed by incentives, by hiring, by what behavior gets acknowledged and rewarded, and so many factors beyond L&D that we need to work with other parts of the business because there is something that kind of is given to us. So there's a culture that cascades down to L&D through the company, through the cumulative behaviors and rewards and recognition, right? And then we need to understand what are the key screws that we can affect and target those.
Okay, thank you a lot, not only for your participation here, but the excellent work that you and Don are doing, the best reports in the world, and real advices from real people. So thank you a lot from here from Brazil. See you.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.